and I've got a soft voice generally. Yeah, that's fine. I'll project. The question for you both as co-founders of the Museum of British Colonialism, as we've seen from this event, and based on our chat before, I'm very much aware that you apply a decolonial lens to all of the work that you do, and that would sort of inform your collaborations. And my question to you was around whether you collaborate with those who are already on the same page as you, or maybe you haven't done so now, but up to now you haven't collaborated with people who are not on the same page as you, as in would you be willing and open to collaborate with an institution who didn't really know anything to do with what decolonization is about, or hadn't come across this debate, or maybe had an inkling about diversity but didn't really understand it fully? So I guess, it's are you open to doing that, and have you done that in the past, or what sort of collaborations have you done so far? I don't know if that's a bit long-winded.
Okay, I think I'll answer it twofold. Firstly, looking at do we collaborate with organizations that we align with what we want, and not what we want, but what we believe in, and I think yes, we do. The question is, I don't think it's so much about the organization understanding or accepting. I think it's believing. If you believe in the cause, then we're open to working with you. But one of the things I'd like to say is, if you look at the Museum of British Colonialism, we're all relatively young, very young.
I born
Olivia. No, but one of the things that we've been very, very insistent on is that we're learning. I didn't approach this subject as an expert. I don't have a PhD in Ma'amal or detention camps. In fact, I knew nothing about detention camps until 2 years ago. So this has been a learning process for us, in trying to and being open about the vulnerability that we don't know everything. So what that means is that I think within the scope that we have now, we're volunteers, we don't have funding. It's very difficult for us to then employ our energy to teach, to sort of convince people to believe in us. I think at the stage that we are, being a very young organization, our primary goal at this moment is to work with as many people as we can to keep growing, and then from there probably be able to work with organizations that are slightly different. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree with everything. Not surprisingly, Charles and I share quite a lot of the same views. I agree with everything that Charles said. I think that we're very young and we're on our own journey, and we're not in the business of going to other institutions and knocking on their door and shouting at them. We're just doing our own thing. There's stuff to be done. We're doing it. If other people see it and they like what we do and they want to get involved, then we're open to that. It's very unlikely that somebody's going to knock on our door that doesn't agree with us if they want to get involved. So that's the way that it's gone so far. And as Charles said, we're not approaching it as experts or academics. We see that there's history that hasn't been spoken about and put out into the public domain, and we're just trying to work with it and create new things. And a lot of people on our team in the UK and in Kenya, it's not like, oh, I want to work on decolonising history. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. I want to join in. And a lot of people say, what's decolonisation? And we're like, well, yeah, it's not really about that. It's just that these are stories that are serious, big things that happened in history that we don't know. So let's do it. And in that sense, sometimes we just call it restorative history. Just put the stories back, make them known, and then see what happens. But yeah, so hopefully that will lead to many more collaborations where people who may have been further away from us in the past come closer to us in the future, and then we kind of build from there.
Thank you. Did you want to say something?
I remember very well when we met with Olivia, just to support what they are talking about. It was about changing the way history has been told over generations, thinking what can we do right now to make sure there's change. And the theme of our event, Changing Narrative, is all about that. Picture this situation. You have a country like Kenya, our National Museum, you go there to, you are a current student studying history, or you are not, or you want to write an historical book. You go to Nairobi National Archives, you've heard things, but you can't see them in the archives, so it's like no evidence. But someone like that has to make a journey to London, go to National Archives, only to find everything is there. Why can it be shared, even if it's photocopied, just to make sure Kenya has stuff for the future generation to correct this history? Because history is full of misinformation. I've done a lot of research. I've been to the archives. You go to National Archives, you just, things that are missing, they are there. And you're like, it would be of much benefit if it was accessible in a way to the current generation. The situation we are creating, probably by not doing so, history is being washed down the drain because places of historical importance, you go there, you heard about it. These places where people were detained, you heard about it. But you go there sometime in places like Kenya, you find there's a 5-star hotel. Someone not knowing will never know what happened there. So what they're doing is pretty important. I really applaud their research, is to do research, find out what's happening there. They do their own reconstruction, compare with what's available now, and it's factual, and create these digital maps. So preserving history for the future generation. Pretty much amazing, and I really respect what they are doing.
I just wanted to ask a question. Julius, you said something about preserving for the current and future generation. Are they interested?
Well, in life you can never please everyone. There are guys who just like to watch us now in my new play, that's it. Others like to read books. Others are engaged in politics. But as a serious citizen of any country, I think it's imperative that you need to know what your country is all about. You need to know where's your country coming from. As much as you sing the national anthem, it's important to know your country's history. And that one is like, if you are choosing not to care, I just think you are careless. You like happy life, watching my new play, and that's it.
But I think there's also something to be said about how you deliver this information, right? And that's why the arts and culture is so powerful, because you can share historical information in a way that's very accessible, very entertaining, and at the same time very educational. So it's like, how do you sort of like pass on those messages? And I think, that's kind of like the power of the arts. Nadine, if I could ask you, because I'm aware that we are coming to the end of the panel discussion bit, so I just wanted to ask you about potential opportunities, current opportunities for UK-Africa collaborations that the British Council is offering, so that anyone in the audience can sort of make the most of it.
Yes, so the work that we do is really about sharing culture, and culture isn't one homogenised thing. So British culture isn't just Downton Abbey, African culture isn't just Afrobeats, so it's really about making sure that we have access and connections to lots of different people who can share their culture to each other. So it's about really finding the sparking points of interest, and we're also really sensitive to how thematically led a lot of cultural activity in Africa can be from national organisations such as ourselves, or the Institut Français, or the Goethe Institute. So we try and stay away from leading by themes. So it's really about making connections and brokering introductions. So we have two main strands. One is the sort of creating work and sharing work collaboratively between artists from the UK and across Africa. And another one is really about increasing opportunities through transnational work. So if you are a visual artist and you can do an exhibition in Kampala, but you can also do it in Joburg, and you can also do it in Manchester, that's 3 times the opportunities to share your culture, as opposed to me teaching you how to paint. You don't need that element. So it's really about how we can increase those connections. We have a website with open calls. There's one that's just about to launch next week, which is for curators and programmers in the UK who want to discover artistic networks that they might not know. So it's an opportunity for a gallery or museum or a theatre programmer to go and discover a network of artists in 1 or 2 or 3 African countries that we're connected to, and using our networks on the ground. In all our offices we have arts managers who are from that country, who have networks and are connected. We have got an open call at the moment for festivals that want to share artists and share works, and it can be through presentation and residencies. We have lots of various open calls throughout the year for collaborative work. And then we also, like I said, work through partners, so there are opportunities where we work with a partner and then bring people in based on the programme of work that we want to do. But you can have a look at our website, and it's pretty straightforward in terms of how you make those connections. And some of it is a 2-step process, so you kind of have to go and find out what you want to know before you know what you want to know. So it is just really about triggering that discovery, and then there might be other ways of making something happen.
Great. I think I'm going to let you guys talk amongst yourselves, which is what we've been doing after each panel, and then we can reconvene and do the Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up with some closing remarks from the panelists. So yeah, go ahead and talk amongst yourselves.
Everyone that I know want to be a boss. We can't even come together and form a union of African producers. So please, can you address that?
Thank you. Can I just make a comment? We're not taking the questions just now. I'll take about 3. Can we make the questions about the topic of the panel, which was quite fluid, but it is focusing on Africa-UK collaboration, so that we stick to the topic, so that we're not kind of tackling, kind of structural injustice or global concerns, just to make that point. So, no, I know, but it's a very sort of generic question that you've posed to the panel, which I think would warrant another whole panel. So just to make that point. So yeah, if you could make your comments and questions to do with the topic of the discussion, and if you could make them brief. Thank you. There's someone over here.
I would like first to congratulate your work, Charles. I've forgotten your name, and Olivia, for what you're doing in Kenya. I find that we've got synergies in that area. In terms of promoting knowledge, as you say, your generation doesn't know enough, particularly in Kenya and other countries. We have a concentration of our generation that's being misled, even to politically support things that are not beneficial for our nations. What are you doing, or what do you intend to do going forward to educate Kenyans, not just the British, but Kenyans themselves, about the colonial past, so that you can inform them to make better decisions in their selecting their leaders? Because at the moment, I am a Kikuyu, we are selecting leaders on something called the Maki, and really the people we're calling the Maki are the colonialists sitting on those thrones themselves, to say the least. And how can we effectively change that narrative that is existing and what they're building right now?
Thank you. And over here. If you wait for the mic, please.
Just to add to his, to my brother's question or the comments, you're doing a very great job, and I think it's really very interesting. And I don't know whether you're aware, I know UNESCO is doing, like Zainab, I think, is books, volumes of our history of Africa, is now the real one, is rewritten, and I don't know in which volume we are now, but I think whatever we have discovered from your research should be, I think, contributed to these volumes. And also, it would be nice to sort of formulate like a model or a strategy so some other countries can also use it, because this is at least one of the things we have to do to really get to our true history of Africa. And the other thing on your philanthropy, also the same. Paula, you're doing a good job. I've been living in England for some time, but I've been kind of disconnected. And I've now been here for almost 2 years, and I'm kind of disappointed not to see a proper sort of organized African women organization. And I think we really need to have to do these things. And the third one to do is I have recently received a confidential letter from a CEO of UNAIDS. UNAIDS is having a big problem because the multinational pharmaceutical companies are trying to close them down because they made a research and effort to find to solve the problems of HIV, Ebola, and all this, and they have stopped them. So anyone who would be interested to have this confidential report, I have, because they have closed the UNAIDS, they are trying to close UNAIDS all in Africa now. And so we need to do some kind of campaign work. So far, 2 countries have signed, Ghana and Zimbabwe, and we need to ask our governments and embassies to join the campaign. Okay.
Thank you. And one more, if we could keep it brief, please.
Maybe I'll come in the next round.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So we had a question on African filmmakers. Why are there not more of them reflecting on African history? How to educate more Kenyans around the work that you're doing? I believe that's sort of the, sums up your question. Are there any women's organisations here in the UK? I'm sorry, I really didn't get the last point about the confidential report, but I think it's out of the scope of this discussion anyway. So I'll pass on to the panelists.
So I'll start with a question on what are we doing to educate, or rather increase the number of people who know this. And the first thing I'll say is we really need to open up who is allowed to do this work. So as a young woman, I will tell you that 90% of the time people don't believe that I can do this work. When I go to the field, I have to go with maybe a male relative because the questions are too much. Why are you documenting this? Why are you doing this? Why, is it for school? Are you being paid? My interest or my passion to do this is never justification enough. So I think we need to start first by saying, who is allowed to do this work? Who do we see as being a historian, or as being a writer, or as working in historical spaces? Because it's a very big problem. And I think what we're doing as Museum of BC first, even by being who we are, is saying that anyone can do this, and everyone should do this. In our team, we have lawyers, we have archaeologists, we have people who do computer science. So we're basically saying that anyone can work in this space because history and culture is really something that affects us all. If it doesn't matter if you're an engineer, you have history and culture. It doesn't matter if you're a pilot, you have. So we're saying that this is really a space that everyone can contribute. And the primary way I see that happening is by saying you can be audiences, but you can also be participants. So as a member of the audience, you also have something to give. And what we're doing, and we hope to do when we get funding, is to say, what do you have? What stories do you have? How do they relate to you? Share them, or this is how you can participate. This is how you can work in your community. So I think community involvement, audience involvement, making audiences participants, in the sense that they are contributing their skills, their time, or their perspectives. And the second thing, just on the same question, is looking. I think we have a saying, I think in the museum world, that access drives preservation. So the more you make something accessible, the more people want to preserve it. So if you look at something like a park, if no one is accessing it, it's easy for politicians to grab it, but if people use it, then they will say, this is a playground, and I think it's the same for history and culture, where the more you make something accessible, then the more we fight for it, and the more we have an impetus to preserve it for ourselves and both for the future. As a museum policy, we have a policy that says whatever we do in the UK, we do in Kenya and vice versa. So even this event, and events such as this, we're hoping to have one in Kenya, display the same exhibition and just basically have the same thing that we've done here with Kenyan audiences. The other thing that we're doing is also saying things like the photographs we have, the reconstructions we are making, the material we have does not belong to us entirely. If someone wants to use it in their research, if someone wants to use it in that, they write and they say, okay, I'd like to use this. For example, when we're doing the digital work, the digital reconstructions of the camps, we worked with university students in University of Nairobi and Technical University of Kenya. One was an architect, the other one was a graphic designer. Both of them had never worked in history or worked as in Mau Mau. They didn't know anything about it, but by virtue of being able to work on this project, they were able to have access to this information. So I think going back to my first point is who is allowed to do this work and who can do this work. That really makes a big difference. And then maybe just to briefly talk about the first question on African filmmakers and not making African content. I think we really need to appreciate that African history and culture has been devalued, and we have really internalized that as a people. And we cannot be faulted for making films about other things, because you grow up in a setting where you're told your culture is primitive, it's not interesting, it's not juicy, it's not complex. So we also have to understand that it's part of the larger colonial process of devaluing it in our mind. Our governments don't fund museums well. Our archives are struggling. So there's a lot, it's a bigger process than just us as individuals refusing to make African content. I think there needs to be a lot of work to understand how that devaluing of African history and culture has been internalized within us first, and then moving forward. Yeah.
Let me just go back to what you mentioned there. As somebody who's a music video director, I just directed music video for one of African biggest female artists in Uganda, Sheba. Very nice music video, actually. Check it out on YouTube. I know what you said, that the Africans don't like to make documentaries, especially the young ones. This is why I asked you the question, Julius, are they interested in this information that child is giving them? They're not interested. You're right to say they're interested in music videos. They have a huge audience in it. They have so much talent in making music videos. So why can't they go for the talent that they have? So I actually mentor young ones to become producers and to become music video directors as well. If that's the path that they want to take, we live in a global village where people should be free to explore whatever skills they have.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Al Jazeera is one of the best news channels in the world. And today, no one can report. Even the BBC can never attempt to report negative stories about Arabs. TRT, the Turkish TV, that is, all of these are state-funded televisions. I understand. I also direct music videos too. But I just thought, you know what? I have got so much more to say. If I could, the man has been telling the story of a Kenyan elder who was able to, he was like a consultant. This is what I want to see on Kenyan TV or on African TV. Music videos are good.
Collectively, we should all put our money in one basket and do all these documentaries that we want to do. We can't put it all on the shoulders of the young people who also want to take their creative direction. let me go on to the African unity that you mentioned here in the UK. I'm not going to be negative about it. I think that we are working towards some positive progress in terms of Africans. We've come a long way. And just recently, about 6 months ago, I organized the Global African Women's Week, and our patron is the former president of Malawi, and we had our guest of honor as the First Lady of Sierra Leone, H.E. Fatima Jabe, and we had African women here in the UK from 32 African countries on a roundtable discussion. So we are going places. So just join in, we're going, yes.
I don't want to level the debate on media. See, the thing is, I've watched historical documentaries on Kenyan TV, and if you go to YouTube, you'll find these sessions of different historical documentaries there. But the question is that, what can be done to make that a lot more? I think that's where we are. And how important is it? When we look into any particular society, entertainment seems to be very quick content to be consumed. But when we talk about history, sometimes it's tough issues that have been to be seen, to be thought about. And sometimes people are like, just coming from work, tired, they want something quick, entertainment, quick. But you know, within the society, there are different groups of people. There are those who are like, I want to know my history, I want to know where I'm coming from. So viewership of documentaries by Africans is still valid and is still happening, but in a very small scale. You're right, when you come to the UK, probably UK, Africa-oriented media in the UK may not have done that. Maybe not enough, but personally I've done some documentaries about Africa based in the UK. If you look on YouTube, you find Pictures Speak Black History. Documentary that captures how UK was. Those are the days, you know, when there were banners of segregation and all that. You find it is happening. So, question is, how can we unite and do that a lot more? Coming to your question, thank you for your observations about what we are doing, and that confidential letter may be something that you can share later. I won't tell you to publicize it. I mean, it's confidential. yeah. I mean, that's something we can talk about later. Now, in terms of how do you deal with the current generation? I'm glad that MBC is by young people, youthful people, and what actually that should tell us is that if young people, they can think history, there's a lot of potential for even more other young people to think history. Now the question is, how do you present that in an easy to consume manner? Probably clips on social media. What we are right now doing, just digital map is easier than to see than going to the museum itself. We're going through bundles of papers. So it's a question of adapting to how the message is being relayed. That will attract more people interested in history. And this is fantastic. You don't know how much thirsty people are. They just want to know, but there's no one telling. That's the problem. No one is telling. You know, and it's also a frustrating journey when you go to many museums in African countries. It's not much to see because some of it has been taken away. There are things people didn't want you to know. How can we make sure that it happens?
I'm really sorry. I think we're not going to have time for another round of questions because it's now 1:45 and I want to be disciplined. One question. I'm so lenient.
That's so nice of you.
So lenient.
I'm very, very impressed. It's actually just a very quick statement. My name is Peter. I've actually been living in Kenya for the last couple of years and had the pleasure to work with some of the colleagues and our speakers here. One thing that in a sense is very important in the discourse, I think, is that media and art and politics are actually a very important collaborative strategy. And as a young man, I remember being in London, being entertained, educated, and empowered by the ANC in London. And two of my very good friends have just got elected to Parliament in this disaster that was our recent general election. Claudia Webb and Leicester East and Bella Rabier-Ruadi, who's representing Streatham. When Kevin Livingstone was Mayor of London, he was far from perfect, but what he did do was empower our communities through art and entertainment at City Hall. You have more members of Parliament in the diaspora and in the Congressional Black Caucus in the US than you have ever had. You must use them. You have churches, you have mosques, you have gurdwaras, you have all sorts of places of entertainment. Use them. And the young people I've seen to talk to in Kenya, because I do like to party, actually, not a problem. You can tell history through dance, through art, through many different mediums. And actually, you just need a bit of imagination. So in terms of the way forward, I see the glass very much half full. It is not half empty. And so the amount of talent you've got here in this room, you can make umpteen documentaries. And just one final note, I was tweeting occasionally about, I think a couple of years ago, about the death of Muhammad Ali. And within 35 minutes, I got a call by Al Jazeera to go in their studio and give my thoughts about what he meant to me as a young man. It isn't difficult. If I can do it, I'm sure a lot more people can do that here. But we have the talent, we have the ability, and actually we have the resources, we just need to look for it a bit harder.
Really valuable contribution, and again, just to reiterate the point that we at the Royal African Society, we organise 2 cultural festivals. One of them focuses on African film, and there's a plethora and a huge amount of films, both documentary and fiction, that reflect on contemporary African realities as well as African histories done by African filmmakers based on the continent. Technology has really democratized the art of filmmaking, and there's a lot of storytellers out there. I just think, again, the distribution channels aren't perfect and they're biased, and so we're not getting to see some of this work, and that's why that's why we put on the festival, and there's other initiatives that also push for the showcasing of their stories and this work. So yes, I don't know if any of you have any urgent sort of like closing comments that you'd like to make. Yes, if so, can I give you 1 minute each? And then we will pass on to our MC for the day for the final closing thank you. So I'll start with you, Julius.
I walked in a dark room one time and I made a very interesting observation. When it was dark, I tried to close my eyes and I was like trying not to see the darkness. But I found out it increased twice as much. I just want to challenge all of us that all the problems we face, we need to seek solutions for them. By not doing so, we are closing our eyes at dark night to avoid darkness. End.
Yeah. I just want to say, I think Joe will agree with me, the appetite is massive. Like, the appetite for history is massive. History is culture, history is identity, history is fun and creative and exciting and accessible and participatory, and it's just huge. Like, do it. Just go out and do it and write the history. If the history wasn't important, I'll tell you, the UK wouldn't put so much effort into rewriting it. You know, you write it. Just go and do it, because the appetite is just massive.
I just want to encourage every African in this room, in this Brexit era, go out there and bridge the gap between the UK and the continent. It's your responsibility, it's your era, it's your time.
Yeah, I was just it's just in response to the comment at the back of the room, is also just to be aware that there are lots and lots of initiatives. It's sometimes hard to find them all in one place. So the Royal African Society, the Africa Centre, the media partners that we discussed, City Hall have launched an African London campaign where they list all the African cultural events between May and October. So I think it's just about also sort of coordinating this, because there is so much out there. But there's always a new generation that just wants to access it and doesn't know where to start. And I think we're in a world now, you know, with the internet, which is so much easier than 20 years ago, where it was literally all word by mouth.
Are you sure? Okay, so where's our MC? Thank you so much, everyone, for having a rock until the end.
Thank you very much to the panel. Once again, this panel did not disappoint at all, equally as much as all the others that we've had. And I would like to say a big, big thank you for your time, your effort. Thank you. I'm sure the audience have been engaged, and thank you for sticking around this far. We are now coming to a close of this really, really fantastic and amazing event that we've had this weekend. Actually, even though I'm tired, I'm almost wishing that we had another day of this. I'm not quite sure we can get enough panelists, but I'm sure there'll be enough. I want to say a few closing remarks, particularly to thank a lot of the people that have put in great effort for a long time, because some of these conversations started well over 6 months ago, in order to get this going. So what you see here is taking a lot of planning and a lot of meetings, and I just want to take a moment to thank some of those people. Before I do that, I would like to say that one of the things that's been mentioned, and it has been a theme that has gone on throughout the 2 days that we've been here, is support. If we don't support some of these vehicles that are going out of their way in order to disseminate this information and to get this material out there so that we can educate and inform our communities, both the African communities as well as the British communities. And you know, yesterday we also learned about the Irish communities who were also went through the colonization. So it's not just about Africa. There's a lot more that needs to be done. There are bigger conversations that need to be had, but a lot of support is required. I am grateful that you have supported this cause because you are here. Support is not just financial support, even though financial support goes a long way in order for us to be able to reconstruct some of these things and to get that material out there to more people. But even just coming and supporting and tweeting and following up, following the groups and having that collective audience that comes together in one place where if you communicate, you're communicating to a group that is already consolidated rather than running around looking for people and using small little networks within our own cotton industries. If we have one large database where we know that if we disseminate information once, we have hit such a large audience, that in itself is significant support. And so don't sit there and think that support is just financial. That the numbers that we have, and I like what Peter has said, the numbers that we have in themselves are a great resource, huge resource. We just need to tap those numbers. So I want to say support, and continue doing it. This event was co-hosted by Informa East Africa. The editor is sat right there. And the Museum of British Colonialism. And we have two very old people. But I also want to call out the volunteers, and I don't know whether we have all of them here. I know some of them might be shy to stand up, but we've got Adam at the back there. We've got Shireen, who's just here quietly. Thank you very much. Thank you for all that you do. And I can see another familiar face. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. Katie. Katie as well has been working behind the scenes. We have some others There's a whole
in
team.
the UK and a lot in Kenya.
And a lot in
who
Kenya.
aren't here,
Who aren't
make
here.
this whole thing possible. So just please.
Yes, a big thank you to. Oh, and again, yes. A big thank you to those who have seen, and if I've missed anyone, please forgive me. And there are a whole bunch of others downstairs. There's that gentleman over there, who's Julius' son, Charles. He's also been working behind the scenes. Yes, and I want to say thank you to that team for the time, the dedication, the commitment, the sacrifice, the passion. Thank you very much. And of course, to Julius, who has spent lots of sleepless nights